Happy Monday. Hopefully y'all are having service to your phone since there's like a whole T-Mobile outage that's going on as if 2020 couldn't get any better, guys. I'm telling you what. Happy Monday. We're so glad that you guys are here for Better Together. Wade is going to be here at some point. Y'all know how this goes with the baby at night, whether or not he goes down on time. It's like always he goes down like right at 8 o'clock. And so trying to get him down and get down here. Chase was actually just saying, remember when we used to stress out about these? And I'm like, yeah, now I'm in black sweatpants. And I did wash my hair for y'all today. But how are you guys doing? How was this Monday for you? I'm going to check in at the comments and see how your Monday was. I am going to be honest, I don't know. And I feel like I just saw Amy post something about this on Instagram, but my energy is like zero, like in the negative. So I need for y'all to send all of the energy my way. I will gladly take it because I am like, whew, I just putting one foot in front of the other right now is really, really, really challenging. So I'm wondering if anybody else is feeling that way. Let me see. So you're sore. Haley is sore from a workout. I should have probably done a workout today. That probably would have made me feel a lot better. I've even been slacking on that. I've got to get myself back in gear. Here he comes.
What's up, guys?
The man putting the baby down.
Hello.
So tonight, now that Wade is here, I was just entertaining. I did a whole song and dance number for the people.
That's right.
They loved it. On tonight's episode of Better Together, we have someone who is so amazing.
Yeah.
We have had so many conversations with him, and literally every time I talk to him, I am like, I could talk to you forever. I could just sit here and talk to you forever. So we're like, we know we have to get him on Better Together because we want for you guys to be able to hear from him.
That's
so we're
right.
really excited about tonight. How was your Monday?
I'm tired.
That's what I just asked them. I'm like, is anybody else, like, let us know in the comments. Is it just us who feel like we're, I don't know. I just am so exhausted.
Well, it's a good thing we have Daniel Patterson on tonight.
Yeah, I know.
He knows all things.
He's going to bring all of the energy and he'll make us feel
mental health.
Yeah. I actually talked to him the other day when we were telling you about, I think we talked about it with Shivy on Friday. We had interviewed like 15 different educators, and hopefully we're going to be able to show you some of that coming up. We're working really hard on that. But Daniel Patterson was one of the educators that we interviewed, and I was like, man, after we talked to him, I just felt so like, woo, this was
awesome. Great.
Yeah. So he's going to be able to share some of his wisdom with you guys tonight, and he wrote a really incredible book, so we're going to talk about that as well. So it looks like some of them are feeling the same, like just drained, no energy.
What it is.
But
it is what it
we're getting there, guys. One foot in front of the other.
That's right.
Most people I think are out of school. I know some people are still in school, but yeah, kind of crazy. So
still in school.
Some people, yeah.
Shoo.
I know there's some people that I think I want to say till mid-June maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
So if you're still in school, we're sending you lots of love.
You got this.
All right, so let's go ahead and get tonight started.
Daniel.
We are going to bring Daniel Patterson in to have a chat about his book, Recovery EDU. So let me see if I can find him. Sorry, Facebook. Y'all know I get all up in. I see him. He's over the top. All up in
there we go.
Your grill when I'm trying to add
Here he comes.
Our guest on.
I think he's got a mustache. What's
up?
Hey!
How are you?
I'm good. I mean, are there days of the week anymore?
Literally.
Think so.
I mean, I cannot even tell you how many times that I've asked Wade, like, wait, what is today? Is today Sunday? What is it? I mean, there's literally no days of the week. So Daniel, before we get started, we want for you to introduce yourself to everybody, tell them who you are, and just a little bit about yourself. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure where to look, but my name is Daniel Patterson, and I am the director of an alternative high school in West LA. And we work with kids who are undergoing treatment for mental health disorders or substance abuse, trauma. Before that, I taught English for 10 years and was a high school assistant principal. I have 3 kids, married to my wife who's an attorney, and have written a few books. So that's about it from me.
You're not busy at all.
No, not even, not even a little bit.
I saw a picture you posted, I think the other day, of your kids out playing naked, and I was like, "Yep, that's Maverick. That's what we're doing here too. It is what it is."
Yep, we're in the naked stage with the 2-year-old for sure.
Same. My mom sent me a message today. She said, "How's Maverick?" And I sent her a picture, and he was fully naked outside in the pool. And she's like, "That kid is never going to want to put clothes on again because I feel like all he's done is live without clothes." So,
why would you? Yeah.
It's normal. It's normal. No, we just want to chat with you tonight about, just several things. Obviously, your new book and where educators can access that, but also the piece of as we close out the school year and we begin a summertime. How can teachers kind of reset themselves? How can they get themselves in a mindset that's ready to go into a new year that we're very uncertain of, very unsure of what that's going to look like, as well as chat a little bit about what are some strategies? What are some things that you can give us maybe as we do transition into a new year, whether it's live in the classroom? I don't know how else to say it, live in person in the classroom.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That's just what it is. Or whether it's digital. Yeah. And kind of what I want to give them a glimpse of what Wade and I were able to talk to you about the other day, just with the piece of trauma and addressing that and checking in with students.
Yeah, I think that's the big focus for tonight.
Yeah.
Is just focusing on that trauma piece because you've seen it in all different forms.
Yeah.
And you're an expert in that.
Yeah.
And trauma has no identity. Everybody experiences trauma, and that's one thing that I've really gained from your perspective, Patterson perspective. So,
Patterson perspective, baby. Yeah, I mean, I think the trauma factor is really important to recognize because whenever we're faced with a trauma or a dilemma, it's often we categorize it and compare it to other people's struggles, which we should to have a healthy relationship with those around us. But it doesn't stop you from needing to stop and deal with your own trauma and take a look and check in with yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. And we've gone through compounding trauma for the last 3 going on 4 months. And if you can't recognize that or you're unable to admit it, then start there, right? That's a good place to start. And no two people are the same, but I think every person definitely benefits from connectivity and resources. And for me, like we talked about on the call the other day, I have a history of mental health. I run anxious, and I've dealt with depression off and on for forever, really. I just didn't know what to call it when I was little, but now it makes sense when I think about awkward moments on the playground, struggling in school, having a hard time making friends, abusing alcohol, all of those were mental health related factors, but I had no name to call it. So for teachers especially, and I wrote about this in my book, there's a whole call to action for teachers, which is you need to get in and get your hands dirty and roll up your sleeves and look in the mirror and figure out what you need to face. Because if you can't face that, then how are you going to serve your students in any capacity, face-to-face, online, email, driving by? It doesn't matter. If you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself and your own trauma, then you cannot serve and deliver and collaborate to the degree that our kids need us now more than ever. Ever.
Reflecting on conversations that I've had with other educators, and really the big talk is, I feel like educators are already carrying I think that every human has faced trauma during this time of quarantine.
Correct.
At some point or another, maybe the entire time. Like, I know I have dealt with my fair share. Wade has as well. People that we are very close to, everybody has dealt with their fair share. And so I think one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is we've already dealt with this weight. It's still not over. We're still unsure. How do we go through, for teachers, summertime, and we could go all into how people say, well, you get the summers off, so that makes your job so easy. Right. But for teachers, summertime is really that time to rejuvenate yourself, to be able to fill back up before the next year. But also, I don't think a teacher is ever off during the summer. I would love to know what teacher is actually off. We're preparing for the next year. And so a lot of teachers are carrying the stress of how we ended the year into the summertime because they're like, but I don't even know how to plan for next year. What am I supposed to do? And they're internalizing that stress, which is then going to carry over into next year. So can you maybe give some perspective or some strategy? Because I think we've got, like you said, we've got to start with ourselves. Well, if teachers are constantly worried the whole summer and stressing about how we're going to return and what that's going to look like, that's going to have a direct impact on their instruction, regardless of how it comes, whether it's digital or whether it's in person. So how do we kind of have some closure to this year and kind of rejuvenate during the summer and face the challenges as they come next year?
Well, I think the first mistake that people make is waiting for a trauma to be over before you start to deal with it, or a stressful situation. Like well, I'll deal with this between June and August. Like you set aside in your calendar, your planner, you organize. Life is not a lesson plan, right? We are differentiating our life in real time, and so when you catch on fire, we teach our kids: you stop, drop, you roll, right? So that should be it for all of us. I mean, there's no timeline for when chronic stress ends, because if you're living a life of intention and out into the world, you're going to have chronic stress and trauma left and right. That's the cost of doing business right now. But it's important work. So I don't think you need to wait. What you're describing is what I call future tripping. I love to future trip. Future tripping is when I'm going to worry about something 3 months from now because it's a nice distraction so that I don't have to worry about what's 3 minutes from now, which is the fact that I feel tired and sad and out of control, and I feel out of touch with my friends and my family. I miss my parents. I'm sad about what's going on in the world. I want to be a better friend, better advocate. So you can only control what you can control, which is this moment right here. And it's that muscle memory that you want to develop, so that forget what it looks like, figure out what you look like, really. It is sort of my mantra. Of course, I'm not perfect at it. I feel stressed every day.
No, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I need to frame that and forget what you look like. Say it one more time. Forget what it looks like.
Yeah, you have to focus on what you feel like, what you are right now.
Yeah.
In the moment.
The picture, in the moment. The picture of tomorrow doesn't matter unless you figure out today. And so for me, I'm working, I went right into telehealth when this happened. For those of you who don't know, you couldn't go in person to therapy. So I called my doctor and I went, and just like this, over Zoom, over FaceTime, whatever you call it, there's a million different platforms now, but just to connect, right? Not wait for this to be over. Well, okay, I'll wait till quarantine's over. I'll wait till the pandemic's over. I'll wait till everything else is happening is over. When am I going to deal with it if that's my mantra?
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into the trouble in the first place, as years of not wanting to address my issues, that once I had the courage to own them and step into them and talk about them, then the shame of it all went away. And, I felt much better. And now I'm very, sometimes people will say, why do you talk about that so much? You shouldn't talk about your personal life. Don't tell people you're in therapy. But for me, I remember I decided to get sober and start really focusing on my mental health when I read a blog post by somebody talking about owning their own. And nobody had been able to reach me, no family, no friend, nothing. And one piece that I wrote was 750 words. It was someone's Tumblr blog. And for me, it turned on a light. So you never know who you're going to reach.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been just really talking about a lot lately, is you never know your influence, even if you're only influencing one person, and just being vulnerable and sharing just what you've experienced.
Right.
Who was it? Dave Hollis said experiences don't happen to us, they happen for us. So potentially, and then Brandon Fleming talks about that as well, one of our good friends, and he's like, listen, look, these experiences are going to help people down the road that you're going through. And so thank you for sharing. I mean, I know it's not easy. I mean, we share too, but not to the degree that you do. And but
that's what you get when for me to write a book or for me to reach kids, vulnerability is the pathway, I think, at least for me. And when we talk about, I used to, especially when I left my job as an assistant principal, I was craving being successful. I used to say, I want to be successful. I want to be successful. And I was sitting in church one day, and the pastor was talking about, it's not success that you should go for, it's significance. And again, that's the platform. Your platform isn't qualified by how many likes you get or followers you have. It's the lives of the people you can reach and teach and help, in my opinion.
So something that we've talked a lot about, but something that I want to talk about and just capitalize on what you said, just in case people missed it or they weren't in here when you're talking about it, but addressing issues now, addressing how we feel
Right.
now, rather than saying, oh, well, it's summertime. I won't worry about it until school starts back.
Right.
Well, then how are you starting the school year off? And I know that's one, thing that we talk a lot about is really addressing the now feelings, because it's just like with any, we know this about life. Like, this is nothing new for people. What do? Well, you sweep
Right.
something under the rug. Well, that dust is going to come back into your house. You're going to see, the evidence of that. And so, it's so important as educators that this is probably going to go down as one of the craziest years of all of our careers, right? And so
let's hope
with
so.
that comes, let's hope so,
Yeah.
right? With that comes it's own issues that we have to face and own issues that we have to recognize. And I think that one thing, because, we do telehealth as well. We've done therapy throughout this whole entire quarantine as well. And one thing that I've been working a lot on is naming things, naming feelings, naming emotions. And that is hard.
Yeah.
Because it inside, but it's like, as long as it's inside, it's yours. It's yours, and you can control it, and you have say of what people think about it, and it's just you. But I have found so much power in naming things. I feel like that's when healing starts for me. And so I think that is such an important thing for educator. And it's not even that you have to go to therapy to do that, but find a partner, find a friend, and tell them those exact emotions that you're feeling, the feelings that you have, because they're all validated. They're all real feelings and emotions, and you're entitled to feel however you want to feel. But naming that has been such a big part of this journey, especially during this quarantine for me, and kind of moving through my anxiety.
Absolutely. I think that if you don't name it, you don't get it out, then your brain becomes an echo chamber of all of the things that you're feeling. And then it's like a boiling kettle. It'll seep out, but typically it doesn't come out in healthy ways or at the correct person, or even warrants being taken out on anyone. Really, for me, it's a lot of fear of the unknown. I like a reliable schedule. I like reliability just with everything that I do, and that's not possible right now. So I've worked really hard to create a reliable structure for me in my day, and I was talking to a friend recently, and sort of, I love friends that will call you out and just tell it like it is. Sometimes you call a friend and they're just like, oh yeah, that's so sad. That's too bad. Like, this is not what I need right now. And they were like, you need to write, you need to get this out, you need to journal. And they sent me journal prompts. Said 3 minutes every morning. I want you to tackle 3 of these, 1 minute each. And there's like 75 of them. So it's a choose your own adventure, but it helps you reset your mind and helps me keep better worry hours, because I love to worry.
So you said, okay, so what did you just said? You talked about worry hours? Is that what you said?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, keeping better worry hours. John Acuff, who's an author out of Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee, wrote a blog post once that I read about keeping better worry hours. About the time and that you allow your brain to go into that worry setting, which for some people could be, when you lay down to try to go to sleep and then you're worrying. So then you're just scrolling and trolling and you're just looking to see what everyone else is doing in their life. For me, my worry hours are typically in the morning. So I will wake up feeling very anxious and what am I going to do today? What's today going to be like? What's today going to bring? I'm afraid to look at my phone. And so just keeping better worry hours, if I can compartmentalize those worry hours, I can worry all I want in that time, and I will get it out, and I will worry just like the best worrier ever. But when I close that book, then it's trying to tell my brain, okay, now it's time to move into the action mode. And what actions can I take to deal with what I just got out on paper?
Well, I can take this all off and go now, because I just got everything that I needed from. I have
amazing.
Never heard of that. But wow.
Yeah, I mean that would definitely
that would
be
be
right
me.
up your
I mean,
alley.
like, seriously,
That's
because
you.
I do have to compartmentalize my life like that, and I mean, to allow myself just that time to literally get it out of my system. That is something I'm going to start maybe tonight. I don't know, definitely tomorrow, but that's powerful.
You should try it. It's a good shift. It's the shift between, what am I going to do today and what am I going to feel today?
Yeah.
So we get so caught up in the checklist, and so do our students. They're attached to GPA and test scores and varsity sports and lead roles and where you're going to go to college and all of these things. So much noise and so much pressure. And so when I'm working with kids, it's really about, how do you want to feel? Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
What actually makes you feel that way?
Yeah.
It's probably not all of the noise and all of the busyness that you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
And some of that's parent pressure and social pressure and everything in between. But even for us as adults, educators, just focusing more on how we want to feel, and then that will organically lead to what we want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I hope that every educator listened and heard that, because I think that is every single educator that I've ever met. We worry. Well, so not only do we have, some of us have children at home, but then our children at school, and then we constantly are in a state of worry. And so I think that would be such a powerful practice to especially people like me who do struggle with anxiety. But there was something, and I hope too, just by, what you were talking about just a minute ago, that as educators, during the summer, I honestly hope that educators just put it all down and truly take a summer for once. Because the thing about it is, how do we prepare? How do we prepare for the unknown? Either we're going to prepare in one of two directions, and it might not go either way. And so I'm like, this is honestly the summer after the year that everybody has had to literally just disconnect. Take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, focus on you, focus on your family, and that is going to make you prepared for whatever comes your way in the fall, whatever direction. I don't think with that kind of care and that kind of work, I don't think you can go wrong. Whereas if we're pouring all of ourselves into digital learning, well, what happens if that doesn't occur? Or if we're pouring all of ourselves into a live classroom, what happens if that doesn't occur? Then we've wasted this valuable time. I hope for once that educators truly, truly take their summer to take care of themselves, to kind of, like we talked about, naming things if that's the case, talking about, whatever trauma they've experienced during this time, and really, really focusing on our mental health to be able to go back into the unknown, because that's what it is right now.
Yeah, and that summer glow up, right, that we want. We want that glow up from the inside out, and thinking, really renegotiating your relationship with, which is really trendy, is self-care, right? So self-care is more than getting a massage. It's more than doing yoga. It's more than all the things that we want to post about and talk about and show about. Self-care really is truly on the inside, and whatever work that looks like. And there's strength in numbers. The amount of groups that are available, support groups and books you can read and book clubs you can join, and doing the work. You got to do the work. And we have a lot of work to do on a lot of fronts right now. And so how we deliver curriculum, in my opinion, now what we deliver is important. How we deliver that, I think, is noise.
So far, two things, teachers. Number one, have those worry hours. I think that is extremely powerful for educators, and set aside time to allow yourself to worry and then move on from that. And number two, the glow up, and considering that the work that we need to do really comes from the inside out at this point with everything that we face. So I think that is extremely powerful. Do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, it's oh, I was looking at this thing that was coming up here. That's freaked me out, Chase. Like,
is that Chris?
What is that?
We have something that's going to pop up on Facebook, and it's actually a little creepy at first. It's Chris. Do you see it? Can you see it? It's with your book.
I like it.
I just zoomed down in a second. I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know where I was going now. Sheesh. So you're doing all of these things like a lot of educators. I mean, some are principals, being a principal from the house, director of the school, just normal teachers, count whatever they are, but they're also parents. What advice, quick advice, would you give? What have you found one great success and one great failure with trying to do everything from the house that you would recommend during this time period as well?
That's great. Great question. My core recommendation to parents is that you need to take your children to the clinician, therapist, counselor as often as you do the dentist. So we, like normal people, if you take your child to the dentist twice a year. So we don't wait for their teeth to fall out before we take them to the dentist. They go and they clean them, and they teach them how to keep them clean and heal them. So, and then treat it if something else is wrong, right? So people think that therapy is only for high school students or college students. Really start them young and normalize. We have to formalize to normalize, so that once, if we do hit a patch that's unlike another patch previously, they will have that relationship, just like going to the dentist. So that's one thing that I would recommend. For parents, a mistake I think that they commonly make is thinking that things like ADHD and anxiety and depression are trendy. Like, oh, it's just trendy. You're just doing it. It's attention-seeking behavior. Well, maybe, but there's only one way to find out, and that's through the lens of somebody who's trained to make that call. Because I know that when I was, I'm 40, so when I was in high school, graduated in 1997, I lived in a rural town out in the country. There was no therapy. There was nothing to call it. So imagine how different my life would be in a certain sense if I had been able to name it, right? To call it by name then. On the flip side, then I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing now because I wouldn't have had the craziness that led up to my mission to really normalize and talk about mental health and addiction.
Yeah.
I think, so teachers, I think the one main theme, I guess, is going through all stuff that we've discussed already is you have to tackle it in the moment. You can't wait until you have a problem. It may not be too late then, but it's better to go ahead and dive into it. And I mean, if you think about it, that's what we do with everything in life. Like we prepare to teach lessons. We prepare for X, Y, and Z. If you're going to run a marathon, you prepare for a marathon. You don't just start training the week before, right, to try to tackle the issues. I mean, it's not one of those things. And mental health is the same thing. It's when you're in the moment, that's when you really need to start. It's not afterwards. And same thing there. I mean, go ahead. Your kids aren't too young, and I love that. It's not you're not going to go to the dentist. You're not going to take your child to the dentist when the teeth are rotting out.
Yeah.
You're going to try to maintain it and sustain the wellness of the teeth, the wellness of the brain, the wellness of the mind, whatever it is in the moment. So.
And it is so crazy because I mean, when you put it like that and you frame it like that. Yeah. It's like, why wouldn't we do that? Like, we're taking better care of our teeth than we are our brain, our mental health, which literally dictates everything that we do. And I think somebody's wanting me to share my password. Hold on. I don't know.
That's weird.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Somebody wanted me to share my password. Chase, are you trying to get my password or something? What's going on? But no, I mean, seriously, that just like literally makes it so clear about, we've talked a lot about establishing habits in life and about establishing things to set you up to be proactive rather than reactive, because we all know what happens when you're reactive to a situation. It's not the best situation. It's not the best choices for that situation. It's not what you would have done if you had thought about it prior. And so I think, just like you said, normalizing this idea of caring for your mental health, of taking care of your brain, which is honestly one of the most powerful muscles that we have. And it, like I said, it dictates everything else that we do.
Yeah, and we think about at school, we still test for vision and hearing, and we do all of these things. Very few and far between when you find a district or a school that's doing mental health screenings. And, I write about this in the book, but when I was an assistant principal and I was kind of lobbying for that, I was told if we find out, then we're responsible. I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point. That's what we're doing. We're teaching and raising whole children. We're not just focusing on the college race. We're focusing on the whole person. And I've discovered that some of the kids that need our help the most are our highest performers. So they will turn in their work on time, and they will exhibit behavior from 30,000 feet that they've learned to adopt to have a chameleon effect.
Yeah.
But if you can start to have conversations and activities that sort of draw out more, and then know where within your school and where within your district and how on your site you're going to get them the resources they need. But we're so afraid of what we might find that we talk a lot about talking about mental health, but we really don't talk about it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you assume the role of a therapist as a teacher. I'm just saying it's really important to learn the signs of what to look for and not be afraid to make a mistake. So what if you email home and say, I'm concerned about your son, he seems like he could be having some mental health struggles, and the parents are like, he just is sick, leave it alone. Well, at least you tried.
Right.
But normally parents are, you have the luxury of seeing them way more than the parents do, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's horrible. Of course, I'm just replaying what you said. The school said, if we find out, we're responsible. Like, what in the heck? Of course you are. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to teach and help the whole child. And Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
what was your response when they told you that?
Well, I left the job a little bit after that. They've come a long way, and I think that there's growth there, certainly, with getting more social workers. And, we need more resources for our kids. We
Right.
don't need, and I'm a huge fan, not a fan, I'm a proponent, like diehard proponent of restorative practices. Like, what good is it going to do if you suspend a kid for 5 days, 3 days? They're going to sit at home, and then what? Right.
Yeah.
So rather than providing them with an opportunity to receive resources and get therapy and work back to the trust and self-esteem that they can get by being an active community member. So I think that as we titrate between an old system and a new system of discipline and mental health care, if we can raise a whole generation of students that are familiar with going to therapy and getting help and owning mistakes and apologizing and listening and communicating, that we will have a much easier time tackling the mandatory social issues that we're facing with Black Lives Matter and owning white privilege and the things that even at 40 that I am just stepping out of my comfort zone to have conversations. But I've sat in a lot of therapy sessions where I have to say things and own the fact that I don't have it all together. I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. I'm imperfect.
Yeah.
So we're so focused on what they are. We need to be more focused on who they are.
Yeah. And I think, right now I think we're all feeling as educators a lot of pressure. I think that educators in this moment of time are probably more overwhelmed than maybe they've ever been. Number one, following this pandemic. Number two, recognizing the issue of trauma that is going to occur within students during this time frame. And all of this is work that honestly is overdue, right? Even mental health, work that is overdue, things that we should have been noticing, things that we should have been addressing, things that should have been emphasized. Because look at how things are progressing and changing within our nation. And then obviously the current movement for injustices and for social justice, and then recognizing how we're going to make and make changes and adjustments to our curriculum or our delivery or representation or whatever it may be in the classroom. And it's a lot right now for educators. That's just it's not an excuse. It's a lot.
Right.
And so as educators, I think that some are going to say, I can't even talk about it. I can't even focus on it. I can't worry about it. I just got to keep moving ahead. But then this idea of, oh my goodness, well, there's going to be this huge academic gap because of this pandemic. And I'm like, who cares about that right now? Yes, 100%. We have to teach our students academics. Yes, we have a job to do. Yes, we have certain standards that we have to deliver. Yes, we want for our students to be scholars and to learn and to achieve and to grow. But I feel like there's a whole mountain to climb before we can ever even get to the academic side of things. And so for educators that are saying, where does this fit in? Where do I even start with this? I feel so overwhelmed. I feel like there's so many different, and you even mentioned at the very beginning, from a lot of different fronts right now as educators, we're reevaluating our classroom and our instruction. Where does this fit into all of these different fronts that now we're considering as educators? Because we do have those standards that we have to teach, and we do have the content and curriculum, and we want to do that, right? But where does this fit in?
Well, human health and mental health you lead with that, right? You can have the best lesson in the world and the best game plan in the world, but if you are not seeing students, if you're not willing to what I think is make unofficial accommodations and bob and weave, and really dig in and figure out what is best for this child. A silly example, but you might give everyone in your classroom 50 homework assignments over 3 days in high school. But if a student is struggling with depression, if you know that they're going to an IOP, like 3 hours of therapy Monday through Thursday after school, why? And that's usually from 3 to 6. Why would you give them the same 50 questions, other than to prove a point, or you're stubborn in your practice, when really that person is learning so much more than the curriculum, and maybe it's only 50% that they're doing to show you mastery. So I think it's important. It can feel overwhelming, which is why we don't want to future trip too much, and that's why you start with osmosis, right? If you can learn to heal and deal with yourself, then you will know how to heal and deal with other people and what to look for and how to communicate, what kinds of questions to ask or not ask, you know?
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I mean, because you're right, all of this could truly send educators into a spiral of just so much worry, so much anxiety that then that's not going to get us any improvement in starting to implement this, starting to recognize it. And I do think truly starting with yourself, because like I said, one thing that I've worked on during this time is naming things, right? And understanding and seeing the power of that within myself, then I can use that, you know, within my classroom, and just by being able to recognize, because especially working with young kids, they may not be able to name it, right? They may not be able to have the mental capacity or even developmentally to be able to name what the issue is. But by practicing and starting to name things within my own personal self, being able to see students from a different perspective as well.
Yeah, I'm just recapping a little bit. I mean, it's our job, and I've heard this a few times, to emotionally regulate. Yeah. And to do that, we have to stop, like you said, we've got to stop being stubborn in our practices, things that we've been taught that this is the way it has to be. And I think this quarantine and this distance learning, this virtual concept has really allowed teachers the freedom, because high schools aren't really looking at tests anymore. These colleges aren't taking it like it's like, so why in the world were they that important in the first place, right? Yes, we want students to learn, but I think we have more of a say now in looking at every child, what's the best need for this child, instead of, like you said, being stubborn, but also able to regulate that emotion and see what those children are actually going through to benefit them.
Yeah, and I think remembering too that, I think remembering too that just bringing awareness, like this has been a time of awareness, and I think that it is because we've all had to sit and we've had to be silent to a degree. We've been at home. Yes, there's been social media, of course, but you haven't been able to go to movies and keep yourself busy and keep your mind busy and stay focused on work and all of the things. I mean, while there has been a lot going on, I think this has been a time of, you know, being still a lot, which has brought about awareness to a lot of these things. And so I'm like, let's just give credit to the fact that there's now an awareness, because that is step one of making any change. And so all of these different fronts, while there are many right now, just rest easy in the fact that, okay, I've got an awareness. Now it's one step at a time in a direction towards progress, rather than how do I get this perfect? How do I land this the first time? How do I make it right? How do I fix it? Yeah. It's not about righting wrongs. It's about making progress at this point and taking one step towards progress.
Yeah, and I like when people post, you know, it's not fake it till you make it, it's face it till you make it.
Oh, that's
so really
good.
You know, we as an educator, I remember full send here in my disclosure, but I remember, you know, being a functional, high-performing alcoholic teaching 7th grade English, just going in and just faking it. I mean, I was good at teaching, but emotionally faking it. I was miserable. I was sad. I was scared. I was tired. I was lost, but I could go in and I could turn it on and I could deliver this huge lesson and it would go really well, and it was a big show. And then I would come home and I would feel even worse and more exhausted. And it wasn't until I broke that cycle of faking it and started facing it that I would land in my classroom with more energy. It was authentic energy. The lesson was just as good. It was probably a little less showboaty and more substantive. But that's a very big example for me. But just in that moment to moment, and that in the elementary school level too, it's just that empathic love and openness, right? My dad made me substitute teach 1st grade once when he was a principal, and the chairs were so small. I was like, I'm out. I need the big kids.
Yeah.
So, but you know, just having that emotional fortitude to face it, and once you face it, and start small. You can face one thing, and for me, it's a cycle. You know, I deal with one thing, and another thing comes, and then you just keep moving. And it's been very challenging. But don't get caught up on thinking you need to be perfect or that you need to feel well all the time.
Yeah,
right.
It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel. You got to feel it all the way through. Is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to being I feel like if you're not uncomfortable right now, you're not reflecting on what's going on in this world. Like, if you are not uncomfortable right now, what I mean, because I think that right now we all are, and from lots of different angles, right? But I think something to remember too, and even Brandon talked about it in his session at Get Your Virtual Teach On about failing forward, that failure is not a destination, it's your process. And I think that is so true with all of this as well, is remembering that we don't like the journey when it is uncomfortable. Like, nobody likes to be uncomfortable. It causes worry, anxiety, stress, all of the emotions. But it is a process. And as we continue to move through that, we're going to find that we're becoming stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So I've said this a couple of times. I'm like, well, a lot of people are like, 2020, let's leave this year and forget about it. I truly think that this might be the year that we all look back on, and we are so grateful for that year, for the changes that it initiated, for the habits that it developed in us, for the insight that it gave us, for the time to stop and recognize, slow down and recognize. Education is so fast-paced. I think that a lot of education is still stuck in what was years and years and years ago, but at a much faster pace. And I think this time to slow down was the moment to recognize and to put our sights back on what's really important within our students, within ourselves. And so I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like we might look back on 2020 and say, that's the year that changed everything forever. And while it was uncomfortable, it changed everything forever.
I think it will. Yeah.
And we have this huge opportunity we don't have to take everything back with us. We can leave what we don't want, what we don't need, what we've outgrown, that's long overdue in terms of change, social change. Let's leave it and let's move forward. But the fortune's in the follow through, and we're playing a long game here. And so it's going to be a marathon, and it's going to be showing up in that discomfort within yourself and within the greater world, and being willing to sit in that discomfort, because but as you learn to call it by a name, and you learn that muscle memory of how do I respond, what are healthy coping skills, who are my trusted allies, who's my confidential person to go to, what do I do? You build that muscle memory so that when you face it, just like anything else, it becomes not easier or more pleasant to face, but you're more efficient at facing it.
Yeah. So I want to bring up your book real quick.
I was about to say, I want to definitely talk about.
And I want to start with the cover, because I think the 2020 vision segues really great into that. So if you don't mind, just what inspired you for the cover, and then we'll kind of dive in.
And the title as well.
And then we'll dive into the content a little bit.
Yeah, the cover just plays on that metaphor of we're missing the mark about what we're focusing on in terms of the social emotional component of learning. This is not a curricular book in any other sense than addressing mental health. And so, we test our vision and our hearing. And so I wanted to do a very clear metaphor that we're looking at the wrong thing right now.
So the book is called Recover EDU, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that that's how it was supposed to be.
No, that's good. Yes, thank you.
I was making sure.
It's not Recover Edu.
Instagram can't see it, and so I wanted to make sure that they knew what the book was titled. So tell us a little bit about, I know it focuses on mental health, and that is the purpose for the book, but what specifically is in this book? Is it strategy? Is it skill? Is it a focus on what mental health is? Yeah,
what are the takeaways? Well, it's a story-driven book. I think storytelling is the pathway to change. So I didn't want it to just be about me. So every chapter has a different focal point, and it tells a story throughout that chapter. Certainly I talk about myself. I had the opportunity to interview a family and tell the story of a boy named Patrick who died by suicide here locally where I live, and 10% of the book sales are going to fund therapy for the sixth graders at his elementary school.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of the things that I'm trying to get that check-in going, and I'm just beta testing one grade level at one school. Let's fund it and take data and see what we find. But it interviews teachers and talks about what teachers want you to know, and what parents want you to know, and what students want you to know, and what clinicians want you to know. And what you discover is everyone wants the same thing, which is transparency and communication and teamwork, but everybody gets caught on ego and silence and worry and blue tape. And so it's how do you have a meaningful conversation? And it it's just a starting place. I mean, this book could have been many, many books, really, but I wanted it to be approachable to the different stakeholders, including parents. And so that's really the book in a nutshell.
It's powerful. I mean, I know that storytelling, when I get captivated by stories within books, but such a needed conversation and such a needed resource just for educators, for the human being, for anyone. Again, just as we start to shift and rethink where our focus is being placed, especially within our classroom.
And looking and just diving into it a little bit more, just recognizing what type of personality traits we have. Just like you said, like all these individuals and all these professionals, they want the same thing.
Yeah.
But how do our egos get in the way of someone else's, and making sure that we are tackling that? So really, really awesome.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of work, I know, with, was it middle and high school?
Yeah, so I was at a 7 through 12.
Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember if it was.
Yeah, I taught 6 through 12. I was at a 7 through 12 school where I was taught 7th grade, 10th grade, student council, tennis coach, assistant principal. Mic drop. And then went over to the alternative school. Yeah.
Like we said, not busy ever. You haven't been busy your whole life. You just, had time to write books and things like that. No. So my question is, because you do have young children. And so my question is that I feel like a lot of times mental health is overlooked with young kids, because young kids don't know what they're feeling. They don't know how to feel yet. They're just working through things. They're just, let's worry about it as they get older. And then we see kids get to a middle school and a high school level. And then how do we go back all of these years to solve what could have been, not necessarily solved early on, but at least coping mechanisms, coping strategies in place to help the child progress. What is your advice to educators in an early childhood classroom, in an elementary classroom, things that we can do to advocate for our students, to support our students, to maybe have a different set of lenses in our classroom as we're educating them as individuals, strategies for younger kids?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, yeah, my 3 kids are 9, 5, and 2 in my home. So when, in terms of looking at them, especially my older one is very emotional, high performer, GATE student, all those things. So it's easy to get wrapped up in that. But strategies that I think are really effective, at least through her 3rd grade teacher, have been, a lot of creative choice and art and looking, kind of reading between the lines, I guess. And then for the 5-year-old who's now in kindergarten, again, it's more that peer-to-peer interaction. What are they looking like as they're engaging? We get so caught up in, again, like, oh, I think they can't read, or I think they can't hear well, or but trying to figure out what is that, not that you're on a fact-finding mission to audit their home, but sort of what other extraneous, very important details are they facing when they leave your campus? And what, if anything, can you do to support that, or to give them the resources they need to address that? So I know, again, I've never taught elementary school. I can just speak to my own child. And when we were getting a new pediatrician, one of the questions I was asking was, what is your protocol for talking to my kids about mental health?
But that does make perfect sense, though. But I think it just doesn't go with younger kids. I think it goes with all kids. Like, you have to be intentional about observing them and reading through the lines. It doesn't matter if they're in kindergarten or not. That peer-to-peer relationship, you can learn so much if you just sit back and you just watch as they come in and they talk to each other, or if they're out the playground or at lunch or walking through the halls, whatever it is, just to kind of name things or question things to be able to relate to them. But that's also very difficult for teachers because it takes effort to build those. What you're trying to do is literally build a relationship from a distance, and that's very difficult.
Right.
So.
I think that intentionally, as a teacher, something that we can all practice is intentionally take 5 minutes a day out of our classroom time, not when kids are in the room, but just 5 minutes a day to step back and to just think about our kids as kids and not as an academic student. And to
Right.
make a practice of to write notes about things, or to write down something that you noticed that day that really stuck out to you, or something that, I think that a lot of things are happening simultaneously with while we're teaching, and by the end of the day we've already forgotten that occurred if it's not a big issue, right? But it's those little
Right.
issues that build up over time. And so I think we talk a lot about being intentional, right? Especially now, focusing on all of these different fronts, being very intentional with these practices. And so just simply sitting down and saying, okay, what did I notice anything with certain kids today? What was something that stuck out to me when they walked in this morning, and just really have a
Right.
reflective moment and keep like a journal of those things, so that when you do need to contact parents, you have some data, you have some information versus just a one-time thing. I feel like that's going to support our advocacy for our students.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny you should say that, because in the book I actually give a sample checklist that I would use if I was in the classroom of these are the things I look for. And yes, one of the sayings I don't like is kids will be kids. When we're dismissive of their behavior, because we know their behavior is a manifestation of something else. But okay, well, if 2 of those things happen, you can have a hall pass. But if 3 of those things happen, you need to send an email home. And not an email home that's a shameful email, a fact-finding, compassionate, I'm on your side email, and see what the volley back is. Because if you don't get any response, that might answer some of your question, and then you'll need to step up your game a little bit more. Because we don't all have students that have the luxury of parents who are sitting at home returning teacher emails.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think just setting aside that time, same time every day. I know that as educators, we have oh my gosh, we have to get the copies made, and we have to get here, and we've got after school clubs, and we've got all of these things. But I think just as quickly as when your students leave, whatever time you can find, after you've dismissed all of your students, as close to that time as possible, so that you don't forget all of the things that did occur throughout the day, because our mind instantly becomes flooded with tomorrow and preparing for the next day. To really sit down, and whether it be the checklist that you have provided in your book, or whether it be just a reflective state,
I think it's just one of those things to where we as teachers, if anything, again, during this time period, we've figured out what's really important and refocusing what's important and what our priorities are when we get to the school. And so, that is something that's absolutely easy to do. It's very important, but you have to make specific time to do that.
Yeah.
Well, what's not that important anymore? Just things that we've learned throughout this quarantine that's like, that wasn't really, let's just kind of put that back here. Maybe not throw it away, but put this one in front.
I'm just going to put this out there because I just put things out there. That's just who I am. I'm an honest person, but I'm like, you know what? As an educator, I would rather not give homework, and I would rather take that time that I would spend checking or grading homework and reflect on my students' mental, capacity, or mental stability, or a mental state, or mindset, or whatever it may be. I'm like, those are the little things, especially for an elementary educator. I'm like, honestly, what good is homework doing anyways? Because half the time it comes undone. You can't go over it together. It's wrong. They're practicing skills incorrectly. We know that we send reading logs home. People sign them. Kids didn't actually read. Like, we can keep encouraging reading at home. I'm not saying that we don't encourage these practices. But I'm like, that's one thing that I'm like, okay, let me do away with homework and let me focus on what really matters and how they came into my classroom that morning. What they're, have those check-ins, those emotional check-ins with students, I think is a bit better use of our time. I'm just putting it out there. I might get some DMs later. It's okay. I'm fine with it.
No, you just need to, kids want to be seen. And the amount of students that I've heard over time, just under the impression that certain teachers don't like them, or don't like kids, or aren't interested in them, who they are as a person. They're just, sorry you put your name on the wrong side of the paper, 0. Like, we've learned, no one's learned anything in that. And that rigidity is canceled, effective now. So what we need to do is spend more time on that. And again, it's just a pattern. It can be a very small pocket of time that you as an educator, because about 20% of kids, 1 in 5, before they are 13, have a mental health disorder that's diagnosable. So you're looking at about 20%, 1 in 5. So that means 80% won't. So if you are putting those safeguards in, it's not going to be every student. Some kids just go through things, just like we all go through things. But if you focus on it, you will save a life. I guarantee it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's worth it. It's more than worth it.
100%.
All day long. All day long.
So all good things to just reflect on constantly, be aware of, grow our knowledge of, grow our understanding of, start the practices within ourselves so that we can better equip our students to practice these things. I think that, just so many powerful things in this one conversation for educators to do with the work within themselves, but also begin the work and help students begin the work within themselves too. I even see the little checklist, the social emotional check-in in the mornings where students write how they're feeling and they maybe give some
Right.
It's small tiny things like that we think, oh my gosh, how do I make time for this? It's like Wade said, reflecting on, okay, well, what is one thing that really wasn't making a difference?
Right.
And how do I incorporate something that is going to make a difference?
Save a life, like you said.
Save a life. Not only that,
that is
but
powerful.
help you understand why a student's not connecting to the instruction today, or have a better understanding of why a student doesn't seem present in your class. These are all things that, like you said, can change a life, but can also help us educate each child the best way that we possibly can and help them grow and help them achieve and help them learn, which is also part of our job too. And so we have to keep that perspective, speaking of. So you can find Daniel's book. It is Recover EDU by Daniel Patterson. You can also find him at Patterson's Perspectives. If you're on Instagram, you know that because we're live with him.
We're going to put it up on Facebook again.
But on Facebook, that is his Instagram handle.
Yep.
Daniel, thank you. I told them before you came on that every time I talk to you, I'm like, I could just talk to you forever. But I always just love hearing your stories, and I love hearing your perspective, and I love how you work to normalize this conversation around mental health and mental illness. And I think that it's something that we have to be intentional about, educators, about doing that as well in our classroom. So thank you for coming on to share.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you and the work you're doing and having me on. It's a blessing. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, we will talk to you soon, and we might even do like a Q&A later on where we bring you back and let you answer some questions, since we didn't have time for that today. But
I'm around.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wonderful.
All right, you guys. So a great episode. So timely for, do y'all like my black sweatpants? In case you missed that at the very beginning, I'm definitely wearing sweatpants right now, and they're just not the best angle, like jeans kind of, suck it all in. Okay. Anyways, but such a great episode. I loved that. If you missed the first part and he talked about worry hours, I think you should go back and watch that 1,000%. Yeah. If you're like me and you struggle with panic or anxiety, I'm implementing that tomorrow. Focusing on how you can glow up during this time as educators. Everyone has so much pressure on them right now, and just so many different things that we're thinking about, and so many things that we're considering, that it's natural and normal to be, like he said, to sit in discomfort, to be uncomfortable, to worry, to think about what's next. So I think taking time for yourself this summer to focus on that glow up and how we can heal from the inside out, because that is going to make a huge difference in our classroom. From how we can check in with students. There was just so many good.
There's a lot. I
could make a whole list.
I keep running through my mind, but then again, just refocusing on if it's past the trauma or past the event, it's almost too late. So when you can go ahead and start getting that help now, you don't, like you said, you don't go to the dentist when your teeth are already rotting out. Yeah. You want to continue to go to make sure that they're taken care of. So
Wade and I are, obviously these Better Togethers are looking very different right now than they did at the beginning of this quarantine, and we want to bring you content that is timely, that is relative to what we're all facing, going through, feeling, because that's why this is called Better Together. This is not an individual journey. We don't have to be on this journey alone. We don't have to feel overwhelmed alone. We don't have to feel like we don't know what to do alone, because these are all emotions that every single one of us I feel like in the world, in our country, in this household, is feeling scared, worried, confused, don't know where to go next, don't know what to say, don't know what to do, don't know how to act. I could go on with the emotions and the feelings that I have right now. And so that is what this time is for, is to find the experts, to find those who have done this work as we begin the work in ourselves.
We can do it together.
And truly, it is about doing it together, because I know I don't want to be on this journey by myself. And so thank you for coming along. We are going to have some episodes that might be a little bit more lighthearted, and we know that there is time and place for that as well. And we're going to continue to talk about things, around student engagement and about how to meet the needs of your learners, whether it be digitally or whether it be in a live classroom. We are going to definitely still have conversations about all of those things, but we know how you're probably feeling very similar to us right now, and right now is a time for us to seek knowledge, to listen, to learn, to grow as we move forward in this journey. So thank you for being on this journey with us. We'll be back Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, Better Together is every Monday and Wednesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you for joining us. Bring your friends. Tell them to join you on Monday and Wednesday night, and we'll keep learning together.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you Wednesday. Bye, guys.